In this video, I'm going to lay out the best controller settings for 2024 and explain exactly how you can use them to become an insane controller player this year. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first thing you might notice is in my video or graphics tab, it might look different, and that's because I'm actually playing with the controller plugged in my PC, but all these settings also work for console. On console, you're just going to want to make sure your 120 FPS mode is turned on, and the only other thing I change in console is I turn my brightness all the way up because console tends to be pretty dark. But otherwise, on PC, I leave it at 100. And then of course we want to be able to see our FPS. Then one bumper click over from that will be the audio. And I know the audio on my PC is way louder than it is on console, so on console you definitely want to make sure to have sound effects in your main turned all the way up. And regardless of PC or console, I like to have my music off. I don't really like the lobby music, especially when I'm making videos. Dialogue, I don't like when the characters talk to me in game. And then you can just copy the rest of these values if you want. Sound quality, I always keep mine at high. Visualize sound effects, you 100% need on. This is like one of the most important settings in the game. It basically makes it so when anyone walks near you, if they're shooting near you, there's like symbols that pop up in the middle of your screen, and it actually pinpoints the direction that these shots or steps are coming from. And like even with having this insanely loud, crazy good headset, there's still so much stuff that I can't hear with that headset on, so that's where visualize sound effects takes over. Like right here, I literally cannot hear the shots going on at Pleasant, but they're showing on my screen, so I know that they're happening. And this is key for knowing where players are around the map, and also it's great for footsteps. Like look at that, it just showed me footsteps and I didn't even hear this guy. And the rest of these you don't really want to mess with. If your voice chat works, then just don't touch any of these. It's all like the audio settings. And if you want copyrighted music from emotes to play, then you got to make sure this is turned on to play. If you mute it, you won't hear like half the emotes that people are using. Now one tap over from this is the game tab, and look, your matchmaking region, this might seem straightforward, but it's not. If I was to set this to auto, then it's gonna go off my east ping, right? Because in my settings here, it shows that my east ping is 45 and my central ping is 47, so 45 is lower ping. However, watch this. So right here at the beginning of the game, my ping is low 60s. It's like 60 to 64, and I am currently on east servers. But if I go into settings and change my servers to central, which is technically higher ping, I mean my settings say it is. Now here in a central lobby, I'm getting low 30s. That's 30 ping less than east. So I don't know if there's something broken about the MS that it shows in settings, but it's not even close to being accurate to what your actual ping is in game. So I highly recommend not having your region on auto. And also if you have a few different servers and some of them are like close to each other in ping, try to play on each of the servers and go into actual games and see how low your ping really is. Because if I didn't know any better, I'd currently be playing on east servers having 60 ping instead of central servers having 30. And that's a massive difference. So there's a little tip for you. Now down to the movement section, I have toggle sprint turned on. This basically means that I just get to tap my sprint button and then let go, and then whenever I let go of the stick or my sprint runs out, that's when I stop sprinting. If this setting is turned off, it means you have to hold down the button to sprint, and then as soon as you let go, you'll stop sprinting. Honestly, it's more personal preference than anything, but I like to turn it on. Auto open doors on, that's pretty self-explanatory. Main tool activation, I would probably put this on hold jump. I think it's a little more easier to control than hold forward. Then we go down a little further to the combat settings, and I love hold to swap pickup. I definitely think this should be a setting you have on. Toggle targeting, you definitely want off. If you somehow accidentally turn this on, it just means when you click your ADS button, you just click it and it automatically ADSs until you click it again. And that is so bad for fighting. You definitely need that off. With it off, it just works like normal. You're only ADSing whenever you're holding. That's how you want it. Mark danger when targeting, it's fine, you can do that. Auto pick up weapons, you definitely want to have off, especially if you have preferred item slots. Preferred item slots, this just basically means whenever you pick up a gun, it'll automatically put it in whatever one of its dedicated slots you set here. So like every time I pick up a shotgun, it automatically goes in my first slot. If I pick up any sort of movement item like shockwave grenades, a grappler, one of those grappler glove things, that'll automatically go in my second slot. Then a heal will go into my third slot automatically. A sniper always in the fourth slot, and the fifth slot is always in AR. So that's basically the loadout I run every single game. Snipers this chapter are just way too OP to not carry. Then if this is what your preferred item slots are, then you don't need this setting on. It just basically moves all the heals to the right, and you don't need that. In the building section, reset building choice basically just means that you can like be over here building with a stair, you put your builds away, and as soon as you open them, it's gonna automatically start you on a wall. Which isn't necessarily game changing, but it is nice to have like consistency. Every time you open your builds, it's just on wall. And wall is the build you need the most anyway, so it might as well be the build that you pull out. Disable pre-edit option. Pre-editing on controller is so hard. And if you're anything higher than 0 ping, then you're in inevitably gonna accidentally pre-edit a build, and then you're gonna have to be stuck in the middle of a fight sitting here trying to reset it. So honestly, I'd leave pre-editing to the mouse and keyboard players and just disable it. Turbo building you obviously need on, it's pretty self-explanatory. And auto confirm edits, I set mine to both, and I think you should set this to both even if you do use double edit binds. Double edit binds basically means that you're editing with one button, and then to confirm the edit, you have to actually click another button. But what setting auto confirm edits to both does makes it so you click your edit button, then you're gonna select with probably R2, and as soon as you let go of your select button, it automatically confirms the edit. And then it does the same exact thing with reset. So you click your edit button, and then I only have to click R3 and it resets. So this allows me to edit and reset both really fast, and it's honestly not even that hard. The only downside of this is if you have it on none and you do use double edit binds, that basically makes it so in like box fights, you can close an edit and open one all in the same one edit. Versus if you have this on, you have to completely close the edit and then open a new one. So look, like if you really want to grind it and really optimize your gameplay and skill as much as possible, then yeah, I just use double edit binds and set this to none. Well, I think setting this to both works well for 99% of players. You can still be really good on it, and it's easier to be good on this compared to double edit binds. Like I only have to click 2 buttons for every single edit that I make. It's so easy. Down from that, I'm assuming you don't need tutorial tips on how to play the game. And then these are exactly what they say they are. They're just extra random settings. And the only thing I really recommend having on here is tap to search and interact. It just makes like resing and opening chests easier because all you have to do is click the button and then sit there. You don't have to like hold it. Then replays, I mean, the only thing that replays are good for is if you want to maximize your performance as much as possible, then turn all of them off. Otherwise, we go over to the game UI tab. Reticle needs to be on unless you're using like some other type of reticle on your screen. Pretty sure that's actually bannable, but people still do it. Reticle ammo indicator, this is honestly useful information. Like I should have it on probably, but I think it's ugly and I never pay attention to it, so I just turn it off. Like if I want to know how much ammo I have, I just peek down at my weapons and it tells me. Damage numbers, cumulative basically just means as many shots as you hit them for, it counts all the damage up. But this can be confusing because if you damage someone for more than like 100, then it turns to white, and then it looks like you hit them for like 150 white damage. But really, you didn't know how much shield they had, so they could only had 75 shields, so they're actually 25 HP. I don't know, it can kind of just make it confusing. And I think list gives you a more accurate representation of how much health they actually have left. Critical damage feedback, I mean, I have this off. I guess some people have it on. It's kind of just an appearance thing. It doesn't do anything. Damage number scales, I think this is important to turn all the way up so you can see as clearly as possible how much damage you're hitting a player for. So I scaled this up as far as possible, and that's 125%. HUD scale, for me personally, I have a face cam and a hand cam, so I like to have my HUD scale at 66%. So when people are watching my videos, they can see the full mini map, they can see how many builds I have left, all my guns and stuff. But to optimize for gameplay, I would probably turn this up to around like the default, all the way up to like maybe 80 to 85%, because you want to be able to see clearly how much ammo, how many builds you have left, that sort of stuff. The rest of these you shouldn't mess with. Have all of these turned on. Like literally the only two that should be off are latency debug stats and creative runtime performance. Now one tab over from that is the touch and motion settings, and we're starting to get to some of the useless controller settings. There's a lot of them in the game right now. Like gyro aiming is trash for every single controller player except Nintendo Switch players. Specifically, if you're using the original Nintendo Switch controller, that is literally the only time you should be using gyro aiming. Otherwise, if you're on any other console, PC, any other controller besides that, you don't have to worry about any of these other settings. Literally just take this top setting, turn it off, click apply, and move on. You don't need any of those. Mouse and keyboard sensitivities don't matter to me, but the mouse and keyboard binds actually matter to me on this specific controller because my two side buttons actually function as scroll wheel up and scroll wheel down. This controller unfortunately only works on PC, so console players can't do this. But like I have U's on scroll wheel up, and then over my building, I have a rotate building on scroll wheel down. So like specifically on this controller, I can just hold this button and it's basically scroll wheel pickup. Like I can just sit here and pick up all the guns. And I can also use it to like search chests or interact with stuff. And then the button on the right is set to rotate build. So basically I can click this and rotate my build. So I can do this and then I can click it and rotate my builds forward. And this is really good ever since the slowed down movement. Then we get to the controller tab, and this is where most of the controller specific settings are. So controller auto run, this is like pretty self-explanatory. It just basically makes it so if you double click your sprint button, then you're gonna automatically sprint. You don't even have to touch your controller. This honestly messes me up because I'm known to like spam my buttons. Like I'll just spam sprint, and by doing that sometimes I'll accidentally end up in an auto run when I don't mean to, and I'll like run off the side of a cliff or something. But what some people don't know is even if you have this setting turned off, all you have to do is open your your map, let go of your stick, and then close your map, and you're in an auto run. You don't actually have to have the auto run setting turned on. Build immediately, I have this turned on, but it literally only matters if over here in the controller binding presets, you use Builder Pro. If your binds here at the top say custom, like meaning if you've changed even a single different bind, then this doesn't matter whether it's on or off, but you can just keep it on for good measure. Edit hold time is kind of the same thing. For me personally, it doesn't matter if I have this all the way up or all the way down because I have a dedicated edit button. What I mean by dedicated edit button is I have one button that when I click it, it edits. Like my switch mode is when I click in my left stick. That's how I get to the build. And then if I want to edit the builds, I click a whole different button. If you're clicking the same button to get to your builds and to edit your builds, then that's bad. You should not be doing that. How you change that is over in your binds, you go down to building and you don't want that button here where it says switch mode / edit hold. You need to come over here and click the X on this setting so it just wipes this out. Then you're gonna scroll down from here until you find switch mode. You're gonna set switch mode to its own button. I have mine set to L3. I think L3 or R3 are both good binds for switch mode. And then you'll have to scroll down a bit further from that until you're in the edit section and you see a bind called edit building. Then this should be set to its own button. So I have mine set to B. So that means I pull out my builds with one button, I place a build, and then I edit with a whole different button. If you don't already do this, this pretty much instantly makes your edit speed like 2 to 3 times as fast, and you'll never get like stuck in an edit when you're actually meaning to switch to your build. So that's a super important thing to do, and once you do that, edit hold time again doesn't matter. Like you can just set it to 0.1 for good measure. Slide hold time, I mean, I'd keep it anywhere from like 0.05 to probably like 0.13, which is the default range. Anything higher than that, there's gonna be sort of a weird delay in your slide, and anything lower than that, you might accidentally slide when you're going to crouch. So I typically keep mine right there in the middle, about 0.075, and that's great for me. Reset camera access and reset camera time basically only matters if you're using gyro options. It'll basically just like reset your camera point, but we're obviously not using gyro options. Once again, they're terrible. So if you have gyro aiming turned off, you can literally set these to any combination and it's gonna feel the exact same. There's no difference, so I just keep mine at pitch in 0.1. But realistically, it doesn't matter. You can have the settings on whatever. Like I said, bro, there's a lot of useless controller settings that Fortnite has added in the last like year or two. Vibration isn't necessarily useless, but I still have it off because it can throw off your aim. If you think about it, if you're trying to be like super precise with your aim, literally any tiny buzz in the controller can and will throw you off. And even though it's insanely minuscule, if it's enough to do that, I mean, that alone can throw off your aim and make you miss a shot. So that's why we just turn vibrations off completely. This quick weapon section is the last useless setting, I promise, but you don't want to use this. Like, the general idea of it is pretty cool. It makes controller function more like keyboard and mouse, but unfortunately, because we have to click multiple buttons just to switch item slots, it makes it way slower. So to turn this off, just set this to custom only, toggle behavior to none, and then come over here. And right over here in this general section, down towards the bottom, there's a bind specifically called quick weapon. Just go over here to this red X, click it, clear that, and now you don't have to use quick weapon. Now to unlock the advanced sensitivities, you need to come over here and turn use advanced options on. You're gonna get this warning, it's fine, we know what we're doing. And what that's gonna do is gray out these first two settings. You can't change these, and that's fine. Whatever these are on doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your sense because we unlocked the advanced sensitivity. So build and edit multipliers, I have both of these set to 2.0, and these by themselves don't actually matter. It says it in the name, but there's a lot of people that don't actually know that these just multiply your look sense. So like my look sense and what a lot of other pros use is 43% on both horizontal and vertical look speed. In the rest of this section, they have everything turned to 0 and off. So the 43% is controlling when you're just running around the map. It controls all the shots that you're taking when you're not ADS. So like all of this right here, all of this right here, this is all that 43% look sense. So then when these are set to 2.0, that basically means as soon as I open my builds, it's gonna double the speed. So this is exactly double this speed. That's kind of how it works. It just multiplies this. And if you don't believe me yet, let me set my look sense all the way down as low as it can go, 1%. But I'm not gonna touch the build and edit multipliers. It's still 2. And as soon as I do this, when I go into build and edit mode, it's incredibly slow because again, this is only a 2% look sense. So you've got to make note of that when you're adjusting your sensitivities. Because like say my look sense, like this sense feels too fast for me, but I really like the speed of my build and edit sense. So I come over here to my look sense and I turn my look sense down to like 38%. That actually just made my build and edit sense slower, so it might feel off. So like in this example, to get the same exact build and edit sense, I'd have to turn these up to like 2.1. So the settings are kind of interesting in that way. Just remember, these are only multiplying this sensitivity. So if you change this sensitivity, you're also changing your build and edit sensitivity. Now down one section from there is the ADS sense, and this sense is completely standalone. I have mine set to 6% horizontal, 7% vertical, and 0% boost. I think overall boosts just kind of complicate the settings and aren't really that useful. So for a while now, all of my boosts have just been turned on. And the reason I have this on 6 and this on 7 is because typically players move faster up and down than they do side to side. So like side to side, if you want to track someone, this is a great sense for that. And then say that person jumps while they're tracking, you can jump up to their head just a tad bit faster. I mean, it's 1%, it's barely noticeable, but it is something. And once again, this sensitivity only applies when you're scoped in. So when you're holding down the left trigger, that's the only time your ADS sense is active. And that's not only on ARs, that's also on shotguns, snipers, all of it. And then down under ADS, I turn look damage time all the way down. Basically every controller player does that. And look input curve, I play on linear. Most people do play on linear. I'd say it's a lot more like satisfying. You can be faster on it, but it does make the sensitivities feel a little faster. So look, these sensitivities could work for you, but if they don't be afraid to change it. What I recommend is to not make any drastic changes. Like don't go from 2 all the way to 3. That's a huge change. If the edit sense is too fast for you, go down like 0.2 and then try that, and then keep making super tiny adjustments here and there until it's comfortable. What I will say though is almost every single good controller player is between these ranges on their settings. Their build and edit multipliers are between 1.8 and 2.2. Their look horizontal and look vertical is between 38 and 45%. Their ADS horizontal and vertical is between 5 and 12%. And their dead zones are typically between 5 and 15%, and that's for linear settings. Exponential players have like a whole different set, but this is just for linear. I think most players should be on linear. So if you are going to tweak your settings a little bit, please stay between those ranges. I promise you, even though it doesn't seem like that big of a gap, like we're talking about 5% here, the low end is really slow and the high end is really fast. I promise you there's a big difference between them. So please stay between that range. Aim assist strength, obviously all the way up. Foot controller, I mean, just turn it off, turn it on 1 and 1. People used to think like if you had this on and you set these to 1 and 1 that it like decrease your input delay, but I don't buy into any of these like random settings hacks like to get less delay. I think that all started as a lie and people just ran with it. And look, one more thing I'll say about the settings is they might not feel amazing like right away, but something that you need to know probably is that basically every single pro, even on mouse and keyboard, they find settings that are good and comfortable to them, and then they don't change them. Like literally, I think Ree is on his same exact settings that he's been using for 3 years now. Miro, who is the best controller player in the world, has been on basically the same exact settings for probably 3 years as well. Like the reason these guys never mess up their edits is not because the settings are like magically good or something. It's because the settings are good and they've been using the same settings for years. So they've just built up like insane muscle memory on their specific settings. For 3 years straight to do this edit, they've moved their thumbstick in the exact same path. Their sense hasn't been faster, so they had to move it less. It hasn't been slower, so they had to move it more. They've moved it the same exact way and have 3+ years of experience doing that. And that's exactly why they basically never mess up edits and have insane aim, because they don't change their settings. So what that means for you is you should take some time, tweak your settings in the way that I just told you to. Find settings that are really comfortable to you and then don't change them from there. Once you find good settings, literally stay on those for as long as possible and only change them if you really feel like you need to. Now, one tab over from that is the controller binds or controller mapping. And look, the controller that I use has 4 paddles on it, and some people play claw, some people just play left claw, some people just play right claw, some people play double claw, some people don't play paddles or claw. And what that means is every single player's best binds are gonna be different. I've made videos talking about the best binds for every specific player, and on YouTube, if you just search Carter2K binds, you can find those videos. But what I will say is something that I strongly recommend controller players, all controller players, to do is learn claw or paddles. Like what claw and paddles allow you to do is never take your thumbs off the sticks, and this is absolutely key for getting good at the game. Like even just running around, I can always keep my thumbs on the stick, so if someone starts shooting, I can instantly turn around, build, jump, do whatever I need to do. And that's because on the back of my controller, this is my sprint button, this is my jump button. And especially with this season, all the sniping going on, like you can get headshotted so easily. So being able to do stuff like this and have really good movement just while you're running around is probably one of the most important skills to have this season. Because sniping this season is a little overpowered. And look, I'm not going to tell you have to play claw or paddles to be good. I think it's the easiest way to get good, definitely. But there are good players like Boogeyman or even pros like Ocus that don't use claw or paddles. They just use custom binds and they're able to be pretty good at the game still. But like I specified there, it has to be custom binds. Like you have to use a touchpad or L3 edit. You have to put like jump or switch mode on right stick. You have to really optimize them, so you might have to learn new binds. Another thing that's good with paddles is while you're like a build fighting, I don't even have to click triangle to pull out my pickaxe. Like how I'm pulling out my pickaxe right now is with paddle. So even just small details like that really make fighting and playing the game so much easier. Bang, look at that. My fingers not once had to come off the thumbsticks to do anything, and the wins can legitimately be that easy. Now this final tab doesn't really matter, it's just a bunch of like random settings. If you can receive gifts or not, friend invite permissions, stuff like that. And the thing that I'll leave you with is if you want to get good, you can have the best spawns, you can have the best settings. But the best way to get good at the game is to just play the game a lot. So go in, play creative practice maps, 1v1 players, hop into pubs. The more you play, the better you'll get. I know this video is probably a pretty long one, but I really hope you learned something in it. That is literally every single one of the controller settings explained. So you can go in, you can make the adjustments that you need if you don't like the settings that I showed off. And if these explanations helped you at all, please make sure to subscribe and consider using code Carter2K in the Fortnite item shop to help me out a little extra. And thank you guys so much for watching.